Hello everyone. Now we are going to begin with the question answer of chapter number 1, the best Christmas present in the world. Question number 1. What jobs did Hans Wolf and Jim McPherson have when they were not soldiers? The answer of this question is both Jim McPherson and Hans Wolf were not soldiers in their normal life. Hans Wolf played a cello in the orchestra at Dusseldorf, and Jim McPherson was a school teacher from Dorset in west of England. Question number 2. Had Hans Wolf even been to Dorset? Why did he say he knew it? Question is asking, Hans Wolf ever been to Dorset? Means Hans Wolf ever gone to Dorset, and why? Why he was saying this? Answer: no, Hans Wolf had never been to Dorset. He had learned all about England from school and from reading books in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy, from whose novels he must have learned a lot about England. Means Hans Wolf never went to Dorset, but his English was perfect. And how he got this perfect in English? Because he went to school of the England and learned to speak perfect English through English books. Question number 3. Do you think Jim McPherson came back from the war? How do you know this? Now, Jim McPherson, there was a confusion in the chapter whether Jim McPherson had come back from the war or not. So the answer is no. It is most likely that Jim McPherson did not come back from the war. In the sellotaped notepaper, it was written that the letter was Jim's last letter. Connie McPherson did not receive any more letters from him. The statement given by neighbors of Mrs. McPherson and the nurse at the nursing home showed no reference of Jim. The neighbor said she lived alone, and the nurse said she had no family as no one visited her till date. Means in the answer it is saying then in the chapter, in the last of the chapter, there was no reference of the Jim. The letter that the narrator found from the drawer, that was the last letter. That was mentioned in the letter, okay, this is my last letter. And Connie, if Jim McPherson would have come back from the war, then he would have been living with Mrs. McPherson. But Mrs. McPherson was living alone. So it is clear that Jim McPherson wouldn't have come back from the war. Now question number 4. Why did the author go to Bridgeport? Answer is the author went to Bridgeport because that was the address where Mrs. McPherson lived. The address on the letter read Mrs. Jim McPherson, 12 Copper Beeches, Bridgeport and Dorset. He wanted to give that letter back to her. He was feeling guilty for opening her letter. Now the question is why writer went to Bridgeport? So the answer is saying writer went to Bridgeport to hand over the founded letter which he found from the drawer of the table to hand over to the lady called Mrs. McPherson. That's why author went to Bridgeport. Question number 5. How old was Mrs. McPherson now? Where was she? Answer is Mrs. McPherson was 101-year-old. She was in nursing home in Burlington House on the Dorchester Road on the other side of town. Next question. Who did Connie McPherson think her visitor was? Connie McPherson is Mrs. McPherson, the 101-year-old lady. Now the question is asking the man who visited her, who was that? Means according to Connie McPherson, what the man was. The answer is Connie McPherson thought that her visitor was her husband Jim, as the narrator was carrying his letter. because Mrs. McPherson get the confused with, because she was very old. Okay, so after getting the letter, she was thinking that the man who visited her was her husband, Jim McPherson. Now, next question. Which sentence in the text shows that the visitor did not try to hide his identity? Means that when the writer came to Mrs. McPherson with the letter, and when Mrs. McPherson guessed him as his husband Jim McPherson, then why writer did not tell her, I am not your husband? Why? So the answer is, the sentence which shows that the visitor did not try to hide his identity is, I explained about the desk, about how I found it, but I don't think she was listening. So the answer is saying, writer tried to tell her that I am not your husband Jim McPherson, and he was trying to tell the whole story, that how did he get the letter from the table drawer. But when he was telling this story to Mrs. McPherson was not listening to him. That's why this line shows that the writer want to tell his own and real identity, but Mrs. McPherson was not listening to him. Next question. For how long do you think Connie had kept Jim's letter? Give reasons of your answer. The answer is, Connie must have kept Jim's letter for a long time. This is because she told the narrator how she read it quite often every day, so that she could feel that Jim was near her. Means the letter which Jim wrote her, the last letter, Jim must have written many other letters to Mrs. McPherson. Those all letters was kept with Mrs. McPherson, and she used to read those letters near about every day. Like, she was missing Jim McPherson, that's why she was reading all the letters written by Jim McPherson every day. Next question. Why do you think the desk has been sold, and when? Answer is, the desk must have been sold when the house in which Connie McPherson lived had caught fire. She was taken to a nursing home. All the burnt up things must have been sold after that. Now, through this question, you can reveal the secret that how the table got by the writer. That table was of Mrs. McPherson, and that table is taken out when the Mrs. McPherson's house is burnt out. Then whatever the things remained in the burnt house, that must have been taken by someone and kept in the shop, like table, and then the writer came and purchased that table, and this is how he got the letter. Question number 10. Why do Jim and Hans think that game of sports are good ways of resolving conflicts? Do you agree? The question is asking, war is not good for anyone. If instead of war we are going to play some game like cricket and football, then can it be better to resolve the war? Now the question is asking your opinion. So answer is, Jim and Hans thought that games or sports are good ways of resolving conflicts because nobody dies in matches, no children are orphaned, and no wives become widows. Due to these reasons, games are good ways for resolving conflicts. Wars only led to death and devastation. I do agree with them, as it is the best way to resolve any conflict between two enemy countries without losing so many things. Now the answer is making it very clear that if we are going to play any friendly match like a cricket match or football match, then we can avoid the destruction committed through the war, because during the war so many soldiers died and so many children became orphaned, so many wives became widows. And if we are playing any match, a friendly match, then it will increase peace between the countries. And I am also agree, that means students, my consent is also that there should not be war. Next question. Do you think the soldiers of the two armies are like each other or different from each other? Find evidence from the story to support your answer. Now the question is asking, there were two armies, German armies and British armies. Now both the soldiers have different countries and both were enemies. That's why the war was happening. But in question it is asking, there is some similarities between the soldiers or not? Now the answer is, the soldiers of the two armies were like each other. Below are some instances from the story to prove. Both the armies celebrated Christmas. Next, both the armies shared their food and spent time together in smoking, laughing, talking, drinking and eating. Next, they played a football match and agreed that conflicts and disputes may be resolved by football match. Next, they agreed about the negative aspects of war and longed peace. And the last one, they exchanged carols and hoped to unite with the families again. Now, answer is saying both armies, both the soldiers of the armies are like each other, means their thoughts resembles. How their thoughts resembles? Like both armies were celebrating Christmas. German soldiers were celebrating Christmas and as well as British soldiers were celebrating Christmas. And they both came together. They are having party. They are smoking, laughing, eating, drinking so many things and eating together. This also resembles in the both armies. They were also same in these things. Okay. Then they both want to play the match and they played football match, means they both the armies were interested in playing the match. So this is also similar. Now they also agree, their thoughts were also there, because both the soldiers of the armies, they don't want that war is happened. They want a friendly match should be there instead of war. So this is similarity. And the last one is carols, means carol singing. German soldiers were also singing the song and British soldiers were also singing the Christmas carols. So here also they both were similar. Now last question is, what is Connie's Christmas present? Why is it the best Christmas present in the world? Now this is the most important question of this chapter because it is revealing about the Christmas present. Now answer is, when the narrator came to return Connie's letter and her box, she mistook him for her husband Jim due to memory loss and old age. She thought that Jim had come back home for Christmas. That delusion was Connie's Christmas present. It was the best Christmas present in the world for her because Jim had written in the letter that he would come home on Christmas. She had read the letter several times every day to feel that he was near her. Now that he was family there with her, she was extremely happy. Now answer is saying that letter was very important for Connie. Why? Because that was the only letter that was with Connie, because Connie was living alone, and so she used to read that letter every day. And when narrator brought that letter to Connie, then Connie mistook her, means by misleading, because she was very old, that's why she was having a very less memory. So when narrator came to her, then she was thinking this is not a other man, this was her husband Jim. So she was extremely happy after finding that letter, and that's why the letter is called the best Christmas present in the world. So what was the Christmas present? The letter that narrator gave to Connie. Now we are going to work on another exercises, and those exercises you need to complete as homework. Let me tell you which you need to complete. So here is a question. These type of some grammar exercises. Read the passage below and underline the verbs in the past tense. Now you have to find all the verbs that are given in past tense. I'm giving you an example, like in first sentence, a man got on the train and sat down. Now this is first sentence. Now here the verbs. Verbs means the action verbs that are in past tense. So they are got, G-O-T, got, that is in past tense, and sat, S-A-T, sat. Sat is in the past tense. So like this, in first sentence, how many verbs in the past tense? 2 verbs are there in past tense. So you have to underline those. Means you need to write the passage in your notebook, then you need to underline those verbs. So like this, read all the sentences, find all the verbs in past tense and underline that. This is your homework. Now next homework exercise is fill in the blanks using the correct form of the verbs in brackets. Now you see the sentence. Now and guess which tense is this, and according to the tense you need to write the right form of the verb given in the brackets. One I will solve for you. My little sister is very naughty when she dashed back from school yesterday. Now here in this sentence, yesterday is the word that is showing the tense is past tense. So the second form of the verb came will come. So the sentence will be when she came back from school yesterday. Now read out all the sentences, try to find out the tense and fill in the correct form of the verb. And this is the work you need to complete in your notebook. Next exercise, you need to write the past form of the verb and earlier past form of the verb. For your convenience, I'm telling you past tense means past indefinite tense and earlier past means past perfect tense. Now it will be easier for you to complete this. So one sentence I'm solving for you. My friends set out to see the caves in the next town. Now in this sentence, set out is the verb that is given in past indefinite tense. So in the given table, you need to make this table in your notebook and under past tense. In first column, you need to write set out. Now, another continuing the sentence, but I stayed at home. Now, this is another sentence. Now, stayed. Stayed is another verb given in past indefinite tense. So, again, you will write stayed under past indefinite tense. Now, because I had seen them already. Now, here had seen. Now, had seen is past perfect tense. So, you are going to write had seen under earlier past or past perfect tense. Now, like this, try to complete all the remaining sentence and complete the table. This all work you need to complete in your notebook. When you are doing fill in the blanks, try to use 2 color pens. From one color pen, like from blue, you can write the total questions, the fill in the blanks, and the answers you can write from blue pen, or you can do vice versa. All the questions which I dictated in all the slides, you need to write in your notebook and learn those questions. Okay? See you.